Hello everybody, welcome to 6th interview of DataChannel. Today I have with me Mr. Manohar from data platform Geeks. He is a data platform MVP for over 3 years now, if I'm not wrong.
2 years.
Yeah, we can say 3 years, that's fine. He is the president of data platform Geeks, managing a huge event, probably one of the biggest events for SQL Server and the biggest SQL Server technical conference in Asia. Very proud to have him on DataChannel. Very happy to have you, Manohar. How are you doing?
Doing great, Raj. How are you?
I am great. Today we are shooting in SQL Saturday Christchurch. Very happy to do it over here in New Zealand. So that's great. So we are going to discuss SQL Azure migration. So shall we start?
Yes, sure.
Great. So what is SQL Azure in first place, or they call it IaaS? What is it?
So the cloud platform has been there for many years now. So there are different kinds of offering that comes out of cloud. So Microsoft Azure is a Microsoft offering of cloud services in which they have the hierarchy of infrastructure as a service, and then the platform as a service, and then you have the software as a service. When we talk about infrastructure as a service, it's basically provisioning the VMs on a hardware which is owned by Microsoft, and you are provided the VM as a service. So you don't have to manage the hardware underlying those VMs. So it reduces your costs of maintenance and the licensing costs and everything which is associated at the hardware level, right? But you still have to manage the operating system as a whole, like you manage your virtual machines on-premise, right? Similar to that, the platform as a service is again an abstract of giving only a particular part of that infrastructure as a service. So when we talk about SQL PaaS offering, it is about providing just a single database instead of a whole SQL instance on a VM as a service.
That's interesting. So we just get the database as a service alone instead of the entire SQL instance, if I understand correctly.
So that's the PaaS offering. When we talk about infrastructure as a service, that's a complete instance on a VM.
Okay. So just continuing with the conversation, like how does one actually decide whether to go for PaaS or IaaS?
Right. So when we talk about the decision to move to cloud, to move to Azure platform or AWS platform, or for that matter any other cloud offering, the decision depends on the business needs, the application that you want to migrate to the cloud platform. So before making that decision, you need to justify that whether the cost associated with managing the service from the Azure offering is going to be better or cheaper, or at least equal to the service, equal to the cost that you spend with the on-premise hardware and the resources needed to maintain and manage that infrastructure. But the interesting point is to understand what is the difference between the infrastructure as a service and the platform as a service. So when you talk about SQL Server offered as an instance on a virtual machine, on an Azure virtual machine, you need to understand that you still need a DBA who manages the backups of the database, not at the virtual machine level, but at the database level. You still need to have a DBA who manages the instance as overall, and the security and the permissions and the database level permissions and all the other maintenance that you do at the server level.
Okay.
Right. But when it comes to Azure SQL DB, which is the PaaS offering, you don't worry about any of the instance level things, right? Any of the instance level maintenance or monitoring stuff. You are more concerned just at the database level, and how you are spending more time on how you are managing the application and just worrying about how much data is going in and coming out.
Okay, interesting. So one of the key things is worrying. If you pick infrastructure as a service, you still need a DBA to maintain it, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So So let's say we just want to migrate to SQL Azure database, okay, where I eliminate the necessity of a full-time database administrator. Oh, what are the challenges do you expect? What are the kind of challenges do you expect in migrating to SQL Azure DB?
Okay, so let's get back a step
Okay.
and just rephrase the wordings around. You don't need a DBA for a SQL DB offering.
Okay.
You will still need the DBA
Okay.
because you still need to maintain the database.
Absolutely.
Right? Like you need to have the index maintenance going on, and you need a guy who knows in and out of databases,
Okay.
who can say if there is an index tuning advice from Azure service,
Okay.
whether that's right, whether it's going to work for us or not. So all the backups and managing the database on Azure itself still
Okay.
needs that
Yeah, database expertise.
right?
So
So you still need a DB. When it comes to the question of migrating to Azure, right? The decision to migrate, and once you decide, what are the steps involved in getting onto Azure, right? So the first step is if you clearly understand how your application works.
okay.
Is it only connecting to one or two databases and doesn't use any server level features, right? Then you can go ahead with SQL DB offering.
Okay.
But if you need a whole instance, right? So you want not just one or two databases, but a bunch of databases for multiple applications. It may be cheaper for you to go and get an Azure VM
Okay.
with a SQL instance.
Okay.
But you don't worry about the hardware and renewal of hardware or any other cost associated at that level.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Interesting. So again, we are coming to the cost, but in terms of migrating, I have a question in terms of, is there, from an application standpoint, do they need to make any changes, or what kind of, do they have to do any prep in terms of migrating to Azure database?
Right. So it depends on case to case scenario. Right?
Okay.
So when your current application works with just connecting to a single database and works fine, you should not see any problem trying to migrate to SQL DB on Azure.
Okay.
The biggest challenge would be to estimating what tier you want to choose.
Okay.
Right? What size of database that you want to choose, right?
Okay.
And at the same time, the performance levels, are they going to be the same?
Okay.
The channels through which they communicate.
Okay.
You need to make sure that because you're putting it on cloud, you need to make sure that the data or where you're putting it is still secure,
Okay.
right? So some companies may not want to transfer their data on a public network. So you may want to choose a private virtual network
Okay.
between your on-premise and your Azure data center that you choose,
Okay.
right? So there are many things that come into play rather than just backing up a database or building a deck pack and then just going and
deploying.
moving that database onto Azure.
Interesting, you brought the pricing type thing. So,
Sure, yeah.
so what are the options, or what are the things do we have? How do we go about looking at picking the right pricing model?
Right. So if it's the infrastructure as a service offering, it's as good as choosing a virtual machine on your on-premise, right? So it's similar to that. But if you're going for SQL DB, there are two kinds of offerings, right? So one is a single database model.
Okay.
The other one is the elastic pool model.
Okay.
So in single database model, you choose one single database and you pay for that, right? You choose the single database based on the performance tiers that are available. So there's basic tier, there's standard tier, there's premium tier, right? And in each tier, there are different service levels that are offered.
Okay.
So there's S0, S1, S2, S3, and then it goes on. And then even in the premium tier, there are different kinds of offerings.
Service levels, what do they actually mean? Meaning in terms of uptime or something, or?
So you get different SLAs and
Okay.
different service levels at different tiers. So you will get premium offerings in the premium tier, standard offerings in the standard tier. The SLAs are 99.9%,
Okay.
like 4 nines in the premium tier. So if you go to Elastic Pool, it's a collection of databases together offered as a pool. As you increase the tiers and services, your performance levels improve. So the number of resources that are allocated for each database increase as you increase the service levels. So if you're in an Elastic Pool and you can add multiple databases to a certain pool, right? So if you have distributed load across over time on different databases on your instance, and you want to migrate all of them together onto Azure, but you don't want to pay for the higher tier on each database. Right? So instead of that, a standard tier equivalent to that tier in Elastic Pool, you may be ending up paying 1.5 times, close to 1.5 times more than what you pay for a single database. But you get the whole pool, and you can put up to the maximum limit of database count in that pool. For example, saying in standard tier, if you choose like 800 DTUs that are offered, then you can put up to I think it's around 500 databases. So, but that should fit in the maximum size of the pool, which is I think 800. You can choose maybe 800 gigs or more than that. Right? So if you have very small databases and you have 5 or 6 huge big databases like 15 gigs or 20 gigs, you can fit all of them in the same pool. But the maximum number of DTUs allowed for each database will be set at 100.
Interesting. By the way, just to make it clear for our viewers, like, what does DTUs actually mean?
Right on point. So that's the next question. DTU is the database transaction unit, right? So that's how the resource utilization on an Azure service is measured. Right? So there's a DTU calculator provided by where you actually run a perform counter collector, right? And collect the stats for your CPU, your IOPS, your log flushes per second, right? All those data, once you collect in the CSV, that can be uploaded to the DTU calculator, and which will give you an estimate of what could be a DTU spending when you move that database onto Azure. So there's a recent blog on SQLperformance.com by Andy Miller. So he mentions about, he does some reverse engineering and says, in which range of the CPU or in which range of the IOPS does the DTU TS change. I mean the TS change based on the DTU usage, right? But at the same time, I've added a few more details to that, and I've written a blog on SQLServerGeeks.com where I mentioned, like, there are few limitations when you use this calculator. Right? It assumes you are running a SQL database on a single instance on a whole box, right? And the PowerShell script, which is provided in DTU calculator, in the site where the DTU calculator is there, right? There is a PowerShell script which is provided, and it actually collects the percentage processor time from the processor metric in the performance counter, processor counter, sorry, and that is like the whole CPU utilization of the box, right? So if you have something else which is affecting your CPU utilization, you're not actually reading the the right values. And if you have some other I/O going on, if you have multiple databases on an instance, or you have multiple instances on a server, which is like quite common, right? So in those scenarios, that input may not give you the right picture. So it's always you need to follow the right method to collect the right metrics so that you can get dependable DTU estimates from the DTU calculator. So in that blog, I have written about how you can collect the metrics at the individual database level, so that you can get at least some meaningful metrics from the Azure DTU calculator.
By the way, to our viewers, Manohar is a avid blogger. He ran a DMV a day series, which was the longest series for on any subject in SQL Server, if I'm not wrong. Around about 80 plus articles, if I'm not wrong. Is that right, Manohar?
So that's an 80 series.
Yeah.
The only other one-day frequency blog, which is more than 90 days, that I found about recently, is the 365 days.
Okay.
So
That was
there's
on
a
Office.
blogger on Office 365
But-
who have written like 365 blogs.
As far as we know, on SQL, it's Manohar's series is the longest. Yeah, as far as we know. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. So getting back to the article that you wrote was on your blog name, probably. In
The blog is iblog at SQLServerGeeks.com.
okay.
So the blog still goes on to SQLServerGeeks.com, even
Okay.
though the community name has changed to Data Platform Geeks.
Okay.
The blogs are still on SQLServerGeeks.com. So I'll be adding the next blog to that series, which will talk about how you can actually extract the DTUs that come out of Azure DTU Calculator,
Okay.
because there is an API provided with Azure DTU Calculator.
Okay.
Right. So you can use that API and get individual DTU measure for each inputs that you send, right? And you can put it onto your Excel, import it into a Power BI, and start analyzing with
Wow.
different graphs and see, what tiers map to which DTU map to which tier, and then
Okay.
with all the beautiful
Yeah.
visualizations.
So nowadays everything goes into Power BI for visualization, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. Thanks a lot for the detailed explanation on how to estimate DTUs, and we will certainly look forward to your blog series on this subject. Yeah. So once someone moves into Azure SQL DB, how does one monitor the resources, whether are they good enough or not?
There's a lot of instrumentation that went into actually showing you the utilization of your resources with the SQL DB or with the Azure VM. So there's a lot of beautiful visualizations that show you the CPU usage, the DTU usage, and it also actually help give you a recommendation to choose the right tier based on the usage.
Oh, interesting. So another question that commonly pops up in terms of the monitoring and stuff is, does Azure DB have noisy neighbor problem? Meaning another database or something is really busy. Does that make your database also suffer?
So if you're choosing the elastic pool, and if you know that there are more than multiple databases using up more than the per database limit, and that's where you may see resource. There's a problem with the resource utilization between different. They may be competing. The database can be competing for the resources. But generally, if you choose a SQL DB and a single SQL DB, and someone else is using the SQL DB, so you never know like who else is using the SQL DB on your machine. But the resources are well governed with the resource governor.
Okay.
So inside Azure, the resource allocation is actually managed through resource governor.
Okay.
So that restricts any effect of other databases trying to steal the resources from the ones which is
So
allocated. to
inbuilt,
database.
you have a resource governor which is actually ensuring that other subscription or other database does not hit us our subscription.
Right. So that's how the resource allocation is
Okay.
managed. The resource
Okay.
governor is the one which is managing the resource allocation behind the scenes.
That's interesting. Good. So let's say I find that we monitor and we notice your resource bottleneck. So if we want to extend a normal Azure DB's resource, can it be done online? How easy it is or how difficult it is?
Right. So that's a really good question. So if there is a recommendation that comes out of Azure portal and Azure monitoring telling that you are having resource contention on your SQL DB.
So cool that. So the Azure itself does give us advice saying that,
Exactly.
oh, that's very cool. Okay.
Right. So it tells you like there is a resource contention on this. You may want to look at increasing the resources for your database, right? So in that case, it's just a slider which you just increase, and you see the resources allocated for your particular the SQL DB or in the Elastic pool.
Okay.
The challenge here is moving from one tier to other tier, like
Okay.
moving from standard tier to premium tier is not directly available. So you have to actually, if you are in Elastic pool, you have to move out of the pool and then move that database into a premium tier pool.
Okay.
So you can't increase the resources from the standard tier to a premium tier.
And in Azure DB, not an Elastic pool?
Azure DB, it's a bit straightforward.
Okay.
You can actually increase based on the slider to choose which tier.
Is it
you want to
online, meaning will the connections get disconnected? Or?
The connections don't get disconnected.
Oh,
So
that's
all
good.
the migration, if behind the services it has to move between the systems, it's all transfer. So you don't see any resource contention or anything, even when the database is getting migrated.
So one last question which keeps popping up with Azure DB. How are the backups and other things managed when we move to Azure?
Right. So with infrastructure as a service model, you still can take the database backups on the instance as you do it with your virtual machines, right? But when it comes to SQL DB, the backups are automated. You don't have to worry about taking backups time to time because there's a 5 minutes log backup for the premium tier that is available. So you can go back in time, and if you want longer retention for your databases, you can back up and you can customize the backups and say you want to store that into your storage account
Okay.
rather than to the default location where Azure manages behind the scenes.
Okay.
That way you can have a longer retention for your data, for your database
By
backups.
default, do they have certain number of days of retention, right?
Yes, they do, but I think it's around 30 days or 40
Okay,
days. So
okay.
I can't recollect it,
Oh, they
but I
have
think it's
some-
around. Yes, there's a limit on how many days you can go back.
So, right. It was very interesting talking to you, Manohar, on SQL Azure DB migration. Lots of very, very useful information. I am sure the viewers will feel so as well. And one more thing I would like to add on is August 17th to 19th, we have Data Platform Geeks SQL Server Technical Conference and Summit in Bangalore, managed by Mr. Manohar and Mr. Amit Bansal. Probably one of the best events. I have attended it 2 times. This year also I will be there. If you are somewhere related to data platform, Microsoft Data Platform Technologies, that's a place you should be there for sure. So please be there here. And once again, thanks a lot, Manohar, for your time and your wonderful information.
Thanks, Raj. It was wonderful to be on interview with you, and yeah, definitely try to explore more about Microsoft Data Platform. It's changing more, and try to be at the Data Platform Summit in August in Bangalore. Thank you.